Content warning bot here. Content warnings for this episode include body horror, mentions of death and murder, general gore, nightmares, possible dissociation, and fear. Welcome back, listeners, to our sporadic but consistent broadcast of your stories.
Today we're talking about the restaurant industry. Well, not exactly, but meat is just meat. The muscle that holds bone and moves the body, slowly or quickly, depending on your timeline, deteriorating, becoming nothing more than a reminder of what it has been. This story is from Tyler.
What's he making?
Look at his face. Lovely thing, ain't it? And his blood is the same as their blood, mixed together all through the factory. Look at them, Miss Corday. Yours, I tell you. Yours, all yours. Sit here at the machines until the flesh rots in their bones and they drop in their places. You inherit them, 1,000 of them. Ain't you proud of your inheritance?
What is he making?
What's it matter what they're making? The things they're making ain't been shipped from this island in 100 years.
What?
Aye, for 100 years they've been at the machines, but it's like a dog chasing his tail without beginning and end. What comes out of the last machine's brought back to the first machine and broken up and started all over again.
Why don't they stop?
Stop. How can you stop a rhythm that's been in the blood for 10 generations?
Why don't they talk?
You're scared now, Miss Corday.
They'll talk to me. Of course they will. This one.
A, B, C, D, F. Grades most are familiar with. With my job, those grades mean a little bit more. Health inspections are every restaurant's worst nightmare. We are clean, naturally, but health inspectors are picky and want to find something wrong. It's in their job description. I never had a problem with their quarterly visits, but my boss did. He would make us clean every corner of the kitchen and dining area. I lost a lot of sleep those days. I'm sorry. What was I saying? Sorry, folks. A little bit of interference. It was dark. Imagine what a large building with no light would look like at night, I guess. My boss had called saying that we were having to do a recitation, some kind of policy change, but he'd lost his shit and wanted some of us to go and clean for the next day. I was never one to say no, and I went in to work. I had been there 7 hours prior, but it smelt of... I'm not sure what rotting flesh would smell like, but it was where I would learn. When I first stepped in, my foot fell into something. The floor was covered in slime or blood. Whoever had closed hadn't turned the music off over the intercoms, but it was distorted now, like the speakers were full of something. I kept walking. It felt like I had to. You know when people see a car crash and they stop and look because we're compelled to, or when events used to be held for the hangings of criminals? I guess it's human to be a little compelled by the horrific. It makes us feel real. I entered the kitchen and I nearly passed out. It was covered in meat. The lights had tinted red, and I finally turned and ran. I woke up later that morning. I called in sick. I couldn't imagine going back there. My boss told me to recover quickly and that she'd been impressed with the cleanliness of the kitchen. I don't understand how that could have been possible. I remember it so clearly. I recovered and returned to work only to find it in complete regular condition, learning that I hadn't gone in earlier that day to clean with my coworkers. I tried to explain what I'd seen to my partner, but they didn't seem to understand. They responded with concern and support, but I think they too believed that it had been a simple nightmare. I still have blood crusted in the bottom of my shoes. I never went as far as seeking help for my dream, because that's what it must have been. I never had the dream again. You know, our restaurant is one of the most successful in the area. We source from local vendors and, well, you know this. We're a small town. Everyone knows the local spiel. But a week or so later, I was watching the news before bed. There had been a body found a few towns over, which wasn't surprising by itself. The town in question isn't anywhere I'd wish to go after dark or in daylight. The body they'd found, however, wasn't a hit and run as I'd expected. The report stated it had been premeditated. The body had been, well, it's not really something that should be broadcasted, in my opinion. It felt impersonal, detached from regular human emotion and desire. But it felt familiar. My dream came to the forefront of my mind, a similar experience to what the police had discovered. It must have been a coincidence, or maybe one of those times you dream an event and get déjà vu, but mine had been a dream, and this was real, being reported on live television. I had never cared for the news much. It stresses me out. My partner doesn't watch the news at all. They say that the consuming of information is a thing you control, and that when events occur that require our attention, we can inform ourselves the way we see fit. So I turned the TV off. I didn't need to know that someone a few towns over had died, same as I didn't need to think about how my dream felt connected. I never really found out why that had happened to me. I'm sure it was a combination of stress and experience. I never really worried about it much. Sorry, listeners. It looks like our story is a bit short today. I don't believe there's much more to say. Well, there always is. Just not about Tyler. How about a story about me? I'm not one to open up, but there's hair to fill, and I'm sure you're curious. Sorry. Looks like there's another page. Tyler's story isn't over. Well, this is awkward. Not me now, Tyler, didn't worry about it much until... that's a slip-up. Well, live radio can't be perfect. I didn't worry about it much until it kept happening. I'd glance at the news and there'd be another one. A body. I'm not sure when I started to worry it was me. I did have blood in the soles of my shoes, and I recognized the state that the bodies were in. They looked exactly how I'd seen them. I'd read about instances where people would sleepwalk and awake in a completely different place to where they'd fallen asleep. Again and again, they'd awake to find themselves in a park or a neighbor's lawn. Could that be what's happening to me? I don't think I'm capable of murder, much less a string of them. I've never felt overly violent or malicious, but I still couldn't help that it might be my fault. I didn't want to see the news anymore, or know what or how many they were finding. I didn't need to know. Eventually, I learned to relax. Terrible things happen. It's awful and bloody and tragic, but I had nothing to do with it. My dream can't be tied to something happening in reality. I kept going to work, on dates, shopping every week. Eventually, it caught up to me. Our local police station issued an announcement that the now serial killer was getting closer to our town. They believed the killer was killing with purpose and motive and encouraged us to be wary of strangers and people passing through. Most of us did as we were told. It was for our safety, after all. Some didn't. It wasn't long before they'd found someone. I panicked. I told my partner we were leaving, on vacation, on a preemptive honeymoon. It didn't matter. I needed to leave. They jokingly asked if this was a botched proposal, which I guess in a way it was. I love them, and I'll admit in that moment I wasn't thinking about it. I was so preoccupied with getting away, I hadn't thought about how they would feel about it. I told them if they wanted it to be a proposal, it was. We're getting married next summer. We did end up going on vacation to Scotland. I tried haggis, which is admittedly terrible, and I got to go inside a bunch of ruined castles. I redid my proposal. I got to hug one of those fluffy cows that, after meeting my fiancé, is the best thing that's ever happened to me. The killing stopped soon after we left. No more bodies, as far as the police could tell. No one went missing besides the occasional runaway. However, our apartment had been broken into while we were away. Nothing was taken, and nothing was left behind. I can only assume I had been his next target. And from what I remember from police reports, the people found were seemingly random, but the actual murder was planned and practiced. I blamed my dream. It could have been the only reason it would have been me. Maybe I had been his divine inspiration, a shared vision of horrific experience. Maybe he had wanted to thank me. They never caught him. The killer. Most of us don't know what happened or where he could have gone. Most killers don't stop killing unless they're stopped somehow. I stopped feeling guilty. It couldn't have been me. I wouldn't have been that good at it. That sounds terrible. I mean to say they would have caught me. I'm not sneaky, and the guilt would probably eat me alive. It already has a bit. I don't think killers normally feel guilty. Maybe they do. I never found out why there was blood crusted on my soles. I cleaned them pretty quick, and it never occurred to me I could get it tested. I'm sure I wouldn't have wanted the results back. Maybe I would be behind bars, pleading innocence, when no one, not even myself, believed me. I didn't do it. I know I didn't, and I know some monster is out there possibly living free with the knowledge that he took the lives of 26 people. It makes me sick, and not in the this is terrible and it makes me feel gross way. I get physically ill when I think of the murders that almost reflected my dream to exactness. Everything in its place. Perfect. I don't remember much of what I felt in the dream, although when my mind conjures images of what I saw, I can imagine how I felt. It feels wrong, though, the way I react now. Being afraid of what I saw doesn't feel right. Maybe I am a killer. deep down inside, the enjoyment of the horrific is part of what makes us human. Isn't it? Or maybe humans at their cores are monsters.
Thank you, Tyler, for coming in today to tell us a little bit about our local food market. Congratulations on your engagement, by the way. See you again soon, listener.
See you again soon. In your dreams or over the air.